On an autumn afternoon, Catherine Wilson gazed up at the chilly sky from a second-floor window of her White House in the Oak Park district of suburban Chicago, Illinois. While pulling on her red Century 21 jacket over her brown hair tied in a ponytail, she reminded herself to keep going, for her son's sake. It had been 7 years since she moved back to her childhood home. Under her mother's strict supervision, not a single spot of dirt was allowed on the white-painted exterior walls that gleamed in the morning sun. "Lucas, you'll be late for school. Just 1 more minute. I'm reading about the Tyrannosaurus." Her 8-year-old son's voice echoed through the upstairs hallway. His round blue eyes and gentle smile were the spitting image of John, her husband who died in an accident 10 years ago. Lucas carefully returned his dinosaur book to the shelf and whispered a soft goodbye to his father's photograph by his bedside. The aged silver frame forever preserved his young father's smile. As he headed down the stairs toward the entrance, there stood his grandmother Margaret. Her First Presbyterian Church brooch gleamed on her chest, and not a single strand was out of place in her perfectly styled gray hair. Her opinion always carried weight at the local school board, and everyone treated her with deference. However, within the house, her strong influence created a stifling atmosphere that enveloped the family. "Cereal again for breakfast this morning, I see." Margaret's gaze fell on the empty cereal bowl on the kitchen counter. The antique china cabinet displayed expensive dinnerware used only for weekend church events. "Mom, on busy mornings. Because you chose to be a single mother, Lucas can't even get proper meals." Catherine's teenage pregnancy and early widowhood, Margaret could never accept her daughter's life choices. In exchange for allowing them to live in this house, she demanded $800 monthly rent and mandatory weekend church attendance. The $500,000 inheritance from her husband's death was also under Margaret's exclusive control. Even necessary repairs required her mother's approval. On weekdays, Lucas spent his afternoons at after-school care. When asked about it, Margaret would merely scoff, calling it that cheap daycare. On weekends, Lucas sat silently beside his grandmother during Sunday service, listening to sermons. He looked like a miniature adult. "Goodbye, Grandma." At Lucas's voice, Margaret's stern expression softened for just a moment. But she quickly composed herself and responded with a curt, "Be careful." Her cold attitude toward her grandson had become particularly noticeable lately, perhaps due to concerns about others' perceptions. "Mom, I have an important business meeting today. I might close the deal on that new condominium." Margaret merely nodded disinterestedly at Catherine's words. The phrase, "about the rent, could you wait a little longer? My sales are improving," always caught in her throat. For the past few months, Catherine had been secretly saving money, hoping to someday escape her mother's control and start a new life with Lucas. As Lucas left the house, he jogged toward the school bus. Recently, he had started avoiding conversations with his grandmother. Even on holidays, he stayed in his room, silently building dinosaurs with Lego blocks. Margaret's eyes took on an unsettling gleam at her grandson's behavior. Though Catherine hadn't noticed yet, her mother's demeanor had clearly been growing strange. That day, Catherine finished work early for the first time in a while. The new condominium contract had been successfully closed, and she looked forward to sharing the good news with Lucas. She stopped by the cake shop on Lake Street to buy her son's favorite chocolate cake and walked home with a light step. Thin clouds spread across the sky as autumn dusk approached early. At 6 p.m., the blue sneakers that Lucas usually left by the entrance after returning from after-school care were nowhere to be seen. The new shoes they had bought just last weekend. It was only days ago that she had celebrated her son's growth as his shoe size increased. Despite an uneasy feeling, Catherine inserted her key. "I'm home." Her usual greeting was absorbed into the silent house. The living room television was off. Margaret's beloved Bible lay open on the coffee table. A bookmark with "Child Protective Services" printed on it was inserted between the pages. Catherine couldn't believe her eyes. On the edge of the bookmark was a note in Margaret's meticulous handwriting, to restore order to the family. "Lucas. Mommy's home." Her voice echoed emptily. In the kitchen, Lucas's untouched after-school snack sat where he should have eaten it at his usual time. The ice in his glass of orange juice had completely melted. Next to it lay the dinosaur encyclopedia he had been reading that morning, open to the Tyrannosaurus page where the bookmark remained. "Mom? Where's Lucas?" A sound came from upstairs. As she rushed up the stairs, she found Margaret standing in front of Lucas's room. She wore a white blouse and navy skirt, her formal attire for school board meetings. In her left hand, she held a stack of documents. The brooch at her neck cast an eerie light in the dim hallway. "Oh, Catherine. You're quite early today." There was an unnatural brightness in Margaret's voice. Her eyes seemed to be looking somewhere far away. From behind her, the sound of drawers opening and closing could be heard from Lucas's room. "Where's Lucas? He should be home by now." Margaret slowly raised her head at Catherine's question. The corners of her lips lifted slightly. Through gaps in her makeup, dark circles suggested recent sleepless nights. "Lucas. Oh, you mean that child." The air in the hallway seemed to freeze instantly. Only the ticking of the aged wall clock echoed abnormally loud. "What do you mean? Mom, where is Lucas?" To Catherine's trembling voice, Margaret responded with a cold smile. Her expression showed something like relief, as if she had been liberated. "That child is no longer suitable for this house." "What are you saying?" Catherine caught her breath. She felt the blood drain from her feet. The hallway carpet seemed to try to swallow her feet. Margaret slowly took out her smartphone. The screen's light cast a pale blue glow on her face. "I reported him to CPS. By now, I'm sure they found him a nice foster home." The screen displayed the Illinois Child Welfare Department page. There was unmistakably Lucas's photo, taken just last week at the church school picnic. Under the words, "Looking for foster parents," were her son's name and age. Catherine's vision blurred. "Are you insane? Why would you do this?" Margaret began speaking as if explaining something obvious. Her tone carried the authoritarian resonance from her days as a high school teacher. "You're an unfit mother. Working late into the night. Ready-made meals. Not devoted to church. You only bring shame to this house's reputation. The child's struggles at school are all due to the environment." Spreading the documents in her left hand, Margaret continued. There were forged medical reports, altered photographs, and fabricated school reports. Everything was arranged to prove Catherine's child neglect. The edge of the documents bore the school board's official seal. "Lucas needs a proper family environment. In my position on the school board, I couldn't overlook this anymore. Everyone at church has been talking about it." Catherine leaned against the wall. Her legs were shaking too much to stand. Outside the window, autumn dusk was deepening. The shadows of families passing by on the street seemed like events from a distant world. Street lights began to illuminate one by one. "Mom, please. Where is he? Where did you take Lucas? There's no point in telling you now. You no longer have the right to see him. He'll be happy in a proper home." Margaret's voice was cold as ice. In the depths of her eyes lurked an almost maniacal conviction. Catherine took out her phone and called the police with trembling fingers. But she was told immediate action would be difficult since proper procedures had been followed. Even calling the CPS hotline yielded only a response that investigation would be needed. When she ran to the neighboring Johnson's house, they closed the door with an "I'm sorry." Everyone in the community feared Margaret's influence. That night, Catherine collapsed crying in her son's empty room. Only his father's photograph silently watched over her. The dinosaur he had been building with Lego blocks remained unfinished on his desk. The next morning at First Presbyterian Church. As people dispersed after Sunday service, Catherine stood before the legal consultation room. Dark circles under her eyes showed evidence of a sleepless night. The church's free legal consultations were one of the community contributions her mother proudly spoke of. Ironically, now she herself was about to knock on that door. "Come in." A calm voice responded. Opening the door, she found an African-American woman with a warm smile. Jennifer Carter. The nameplate on her desk indicated she was an attorney specializing in child welfare. "Yesterday, my son." Catherine's voice broke off. Jennifer quietly nodded, encouraging her to continue. Exhausted, Catherine sank into a chair and related the events since yesterday. Margaret's planned deception. False report to CPS. The community's silence. Everything was orchestrated using my mother's influence. When Catherine finished speaking, Jennifer closed her eyes for a moment and took a deep breath as if organizing her thoughts. "Indeed, your case isn't simple. However," she continued while pulling a file from her desk drawer, "I've seen similar cases many times. People with power and influence trying to use the system for personal revenge or control. But the truth always comes to light." In Jennifer's words, Catherine felt she saw a glimmer of hope for the first time. "The retainer is $5,000. Payment plans are available, but..." "That's fine," Catherine answered immediately. She decided to use the entire down payment she had just received from the new condominium contract. That level of resolve was necessary to free herself from her mother's control. "Then let's begin gathering evidence immediately." Jennifer efficiently explained the action plan. "First, we need testimonies from Lucas's school contacts. His teacher Mrs. Thompson, after-school care staff, the school counselor. We'll gather as many people as possible who can testify about his daily behavior." At Oak Park Elementary School, Mrs. Thompson readily offered to help. "Lucas is one of the most considerate children in class. Just the other day, he accompanied a sick friend to the nurse's office. He's never missed homework." The teacher's testimony was the complete opposite of Margaret's false report claiming he was a problem child. Jessica Brown from the after-school care provided security camera footage. Every day until 4 p.m. when his grandmother picks him up, Lucas reads books or plays with friends. He's such a peaceful child. School counselor Mark Wilson also immediately offered his testimony. In our biannual regular counseling sessions, Lucas has shown no problematic behavior whatsoever. Rather, I've observed his emotional growth in dealing with the loss of his father. Evidence steadily accumulated. Even the Johnson family across the street finally spoke up. Actually, yesterday evening, I saw Mrs. Margaret talking to a strange man. I noted down the car's license plate. He turned out to be from a private facility posing as CPS. Mail carrier Mr. Peterson provided delivery records of suspicious documents. Mrs. Anderson from Sunday school gave testimony about Margaret's abnormal behavior. After last week's service, I heard Mrs. Margaret muttering to herself, "Those possessed by demons must be guided to the right path." The decisive evidence was found in an unexpected place. Before Margaret returned home, Catherine entered the study with Jennifer. The old desktop computer had no password protection. Mom always uses the same password. My birth date. Document after document opened on the screen. Draft emails of false reports to CPS. Templates of forged medical certificates. And the most shocking discovery was in a folder named Inheritance. This is Dad's real will. After John's death, Margaret had exclusively managed the inheritance. However, the original will clearly stated inheritance provisions for Lucas. It even detailed instructions for establishing a trust fund to avoid inheritance tax. This will was forged and altered. Jennifer's voice resonated heavily. But why target Lucas? Probably because your son was approaching inheritance age. The risk of the fraud being discovered would increase. So she made a preemptive move to take away custody. All the pieces started connecting. Margaret's actions weren't just about control, they included financial calculation. After organizing the evidence, Jennifer immediately filed for an emergency hearing. By early the next day, a temporary custody restoration order was issued with the judge's signature. Simultaneously, a restraining order against Margaret was issued. CPS investigators began urgent fact-checking. The numerous forged documents were exposed one by one, revealing the truth of the false report. We've located Lucas. Jennifer's phone rang that evening. Oak Park Children's Center. He had been placed there through Margaret's influence, bypassing regular channels. Let's go get him right away. During the drive, Catherine stared at her phone screen. It showed the bookmark from the dinosaur book Lucas had last been reading. His father's memorial photo, inserted in the Tyrannosaurus page. The front entrance of Oak Park Children's Center had the word "Hope" depicted in stained glass, but to Catherine it seemed only ironic. Jennifer was speaking with the facility director, custody order documents in hand. "Please wait in the meeting room." Led by a matter-of-fact administrative voice, Catherine entered a pale green room. The kids' corner contained carelessly placed stuffed animals and picture books. Children's drawings hung on the walls, all depicting families. The sound of a door opening. A small figure running toward her. It was Lucas. Catherine caught her breath. Just 2 days. Yet 2 days. Had there ever been a time when her child felt so distant? "Lucas, baby, I'm so sorry." She held him tight. Warm. Real. The scent of his shampoo washed away Margaret's words about being an unfit mother. "Grandma said that you didn't want me anymore." Lucas's voice trembled. Catherine looked straight into her son's eyes. "That's not true." "Never." I've been fighting all this time to get you back." Tears fell. She gently wiped the drops trailing down Lucas's cheeks. "Let's go home." "But what about Grandma?" "It's okay. No one can separate us anymore." As they left the facility, Lucas didn't look back. Instead, he held Catherine's hand tightly. That night, psychologist Sarah Brown visited their home. Her expression was grim after meeting with Lucas. "Long-term care will be needed. There are signs of psychological abuse from his grandmother." The report detailed Margaret's daily words and actions. "You'll end up just like your father. You're ruining this house's reputation. You should have been raised in a proper home." The accumulation of small comments had eaten away at his young heart. The next day, Margaret underwent a psychiatric evaluation at the Illinois State Mental Health Center. The results far exceeded Catherine's expectations. In addition to obsessive personality disorder, she shows marked delusional features. Dr. Robert Clark continued his explanation while looking down at a thick file. Particularly notable are her abnormal fixations on social appearances and moral perfectionism. Her distortion of reality is progressive. However, this was just the tip of the iceberg. At the evidence disclosure in Jennifer's office, Catherine couldn't believe her eyes before the mountain of thick files. "This is the traffic accident report from 10 years ago. John's accident." The newspapers at the time reported it as merely an unfortunate accident. A rainy night. A car that slipped. A collision breaking through the guardrail. "Do you notice anything unusual?" The point Jennifer indicated. Just before the accident, a large sum was transferred from John's bank account. The destination was Margaret's personal account. The life insurance documents were clearly altered as well. The insurance beneficiaries should have been Catherine and Lucas. However, it had been changed to Margaret's name. The signature handwriting was unnatural. And this is decisive. The final file contained records of Margaret's actions on the day of the accident. Security camera footage. Gas station receipts. And John's car maintenance records. The brake modification marks. Words failed. Catherine's hands shook. The truth from 10 years ago was about to be revealed. Margaret's voice echoed in the courtroom. "Everything I did was for the family." On the witness stand, she began speaking as if collapsing. "When Catherine got pregnant as a teenager, our reputation hit rock bottom. At church, at school, everyone's eyes. So that's why you did that to John. He was trying to take Catherine away. From this house, from this area. My daughter, my grandson." The courtroom fell silent. Tampering with the brakes was easy. The mechanic's son is indebted to our school board. The horrific truth was told matter-of-factly. The inheritance, the insurance money, I had to control it all. To maintain this house's order, to protect this family's dignity. Margaret's eyes were looking somewhere distant. But as Lucas grew bigger, his eyes looked just like John's. The confession continued like a deranged prayer. "I was right. Everything was according to God's guidance." The verdict was swiftly delivered. Complete revocation of custody rights. Mandatory psychiatric hospitalization. Order to return the misappropriated inheritance. As Catherine left the courthouse, she saw Margaret's retreating figure. Her mother's once strict and dignified form was now small and shrunken. Her gray hair was disheveled, her hands trembling as if grasping at empty air. Catherine stopped as she was about to call out. Complex emotions constricted her chest. Hatred, pity, and above all, deep sadness. On the way home, Lucas spoke in a small voice. "Mom, I won't read dinosaur books anymore. Because Grandma said I'd end up like Dad. But I don't want to be like Dad. Because Dad left you behind." Catherine pulled the car over to the shoulder. She turned to face Lucas in the back seat. "That's not true. Your father was someone who tried to make us happy. No one can taint that memory." That night, they gazed at his father's photograph together. The smile from 10 years ago looked different now. It wasn't tinged with sadness, but rather held a new light of hope. Outside the window, the bells of First Presbyterian Church were ringing. But now, their sound didn't reach their hearts. A new morning was slowly dawning. 1 year later, in autumn. From their new apartment window near Oak Park Station, they could see the tree-lined street in fall colors. The red and yellow leaves illuminated by the morning sun sparkled like stained glass. "Lucas, come here. Pancakes are ready." At the voice from the kitchen, the now 9-year-old boy looked up. On the living room floor lay a partially assembled dinosaur fossil model. It was his new hobby, bought from the Natural History Museum. "I'm working on T-Rex's right leg. It's really difficult." Gone was his fearful voice, replaced by one full of curiosity and brightness. The fruit and pancakes on the dining table overflow with homemade warmth. No one criticizes ready-made meals anymore. "Is Roger coming today too?" Roger Brown, the associate pastor at First Baptist Church and Catherine's new love. With his gentle personality, he dotes on Lucas like his own son. "Yes, after the movie, the three of us will have dinner together." Last night, Lucas asked Roger for the first time, "Can I call you Dad?" Overcome with emotion, Roger could only embrace Lucas wordlessly. Catherine's real estate business was thriving. Her reputation in the Oak Park district was actually better than before. The strength she showed in overcoming that incident resonated with many people. Her new colleague Jane said, "Your experience has become a source of hope for others in similar situations." Indeed, women struggling with family issues occasionally came to Catherine for advice. She continued to quietly share her experiences. At Oak Park Elementary School, Lucas had become noticeably brighter. Mrs. Thompson wrote in a recent class newsletter, "Lucas has been doing wonderfully as the class's emotional counselor. I'm particularly moved by his gentle approach to friends dealing with family issues." Lucas was also vibrant in his weekend soccer team. Roger never failed to come cheer at the games. Every time Catherine saw this, her heart would warm. However, not everything was smooth sailing. Every Tuesday evening, Lucas visited Sarah, the child psychologist. Trauma care was still necessary. Particularly on stormy nights, he would have frightening dreams. Dreams where Grandma tries to take me away again. Sarah patiently stood by Lucas's heart. "That's a natural response. But remember, you have many people protecting you." Indeed, the new community was warm. Linda, their apartment neighbor, baked them homemade cookies. The Rodriguez twins living on the first floor became Lucas's best friends. "Hey, Mom." One day, Lucas asked, "How's Grandma doing?" Catherine was momentarily lost for words. "Margaret, hospitalized in the psychiatric facility, spent her days not speaking to anyone except nurses. She had lost everything: her position at church, her social credibility. Most of the inheritance was paid as compensation, with the remainder transferred to Lucas's education trust fund. Grandma is resting in a special place to get better. Is it my fault? No, this is the result of Grandma's own choices. Occasionally, letters arrive from the facility about Margaret's condition. They say she spends each day looking at old family photographs. Sometimes she mumbles, "Everything was for the family." A new family photo hung on the living room wall. Catherine, Lucas, and Roger. Taken at First Baptist Church's picnic, the photo overflowed with genuine smiles. Lucas's dream for the future was to become an archaeologist. "I'll dig up dinosaur bones and solve the mysteries of ancient Earth," he would say, eyes sparkling. At the Natural History Museum's dinosaur exhibition, his enthusiasm earned him special explanations from the curator. Catherine and Roger's wedding was planned for next spring. Though it would be a small ceremony, people from their new community were helping with preparations from their hearts. Lucas was very excited about his role as ring bearer. "Mom, let's make a new album." One day as Christmas approached, Lucas suggested. "This time, we'll only put in happy memories." Catherine quietly nodded at her son's words. The past couldn't be erased. But they could open a new page. The bells of First Baptist Church rang gently. Outside the window, snow had begun falling quietly. In the warm living room, a new family story was slowly being woven. Margaret's final letter read, "Though I don't deserve to ask for forgiveness, I have just one prayer. That Catherine and Lucas find true happiness." Ironically, that prayer had now become reality. The doctor said, "Her memories will gradually fade." But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Catherine would likely never witness her mother's final moments. That was also a choice to protect Lucas. However, once a month at First Presbyterian Church's chapel, Catherine quietly prayed. Not for hatred or forgiveness. Simply that everyone's hearts would someday find peace. Next to the new family photo, John's picture still hung. What was once sorrow had now transformed into peaceful remembrance. "So, what should we put on the cover of our new album?" "A rainbow picture. Because rainbows only appear after the rain stops, right?" Lucas's words brought tears to Catherine's eyes. Her son had grown stronger and wiser than she had imagined. An evening train glided into Oak Park Station platform. Their new family story had only just begun. And surely, it would become a happy one.